Talk and All Points TV. And we have, again, we want to talk to, we really enjoyed talking to you last time, Carlos, so we had to have you back because you had a lot of people responding to what you had to say. And we're going to pick it up from there. We're basically going to just let you address what you wanted to address and also contrast you with yourself with the other candidates in the field there for the Michigan governor in this upcoming election. So anyway, let's go from there. What's the major difference between you and the rest of them, you think?
Okay, so just recently, John, and thank you for having me on again, because I think it is very important to be an informed voting populace, right? So just recently, I had started out running as a Republican because I feel like all of my life, those are the values: Christian, conservative, constitutionalist, small business, independent, that kind of thing. I believe in smaller government, less taxes, more freedoms for the people. Let me do my business. Let me build my business. Leave me alone. I'll pay my taxes and like a good little doobie, but I don't need all of your oversight and regulations. So I have always felt as that I was a Republican. So I decided to throw my hat into the ring as a Republican. And I have just recently changed to running as a non-party affiliate or an independent. And I'll tell you why I did that, because I think this is very important. It doesn't matter what party you are running for. If the people in your party are not supporting you or giving you equal opportunities with the other candidates in your party prior to the primary, that's a problem. And that's what we were seeing. We were seeing certain people in our Republican leadership only letting our people see 4 or 5 of the 10 or 12 people that are running. Okay, there's like 10 or 12 people running for Republican governor, and they should all be given a fair shake up to the primary in August. That's not what's happening. Myself and at least one of the more active conservative people were being totally kind of shunned. Then there's a couple of other people that they're not mentioning at all. So I said, I'm not going to wait for them to support me. I think I have a strong message, which is property tax elimination. Plus, it's cutting the spending in Lansing. Because if we cut the spending, we can cut taxes, right? And there's so much more than that based on financials. And that's my game. I'm a numbers nerd. So it's like my message is not getting put out there. My message is not being allowed to be heard because certain people in our membership, our leadership, only want you to see and hear from a couple. So I jumped ship from the Republican Party. I still have all of my Republican values, which I think are pretty much in line with the Tea Party people, the Libertarians, some Democrats. We're conservative. We want less government. We want less taxes. We want more freedom for the people. We want economic prosperity. That's pretty much everybody. So I'm running for the people, not a party. And I think that's important in this day and age. We have so many people leaving their parties because their parties are not representing them as people. Okay, so let me just talk a little bit. Again, you said that I was on last time and people seem to enjoy the conversation I had about property taxes. I have been working on total elimination of all property taxes in the state of Michigan. It's now been 6 years. I have done 2 circulations. We're finalizing the last circulation to see if we're going to have enough signatures to get it on the ballot in November. If we don't, we'll probably go again, because every time we talk about property tax elimination, we educate more people. We're starting to turn down millages, which is a great thing. If you can turn down a millage, you're going to keep your property taxes lower if you don't have that millage getting added on to your property tax bill. We're educating people about how to fight those millages themselves, but we are also educating people on what is happening at our township levels, our county levels, and our state levels. And it has to do with the budget. This governor election, I feel, is going to be about the numbers. We're spending too much money. Taxes are being increased. We can't afford them. We lose everything. The people are losing their homes, their farms, and their businesses, and the government just keeps spending, spending, spending. They don't care that we can't afford their spending anymore.
Yeah,
So,
that's another thing. I mean, I've seen this on the national level. I mean, you bring up taxes and how they're spending money, and there's no response at all. They act like you didn't even bring the objection wasn't even raised. I mean, it's
yeah,
like and it's like you realize these people have got a limit. They can't increase their pay like you guys do in Congress. You vote yourself an increase. We can't do that, and they're just oblivious to that.
well, and when you mentioned earlier about, you know what? I have been a small business owner all of my life. I exist on my ability to make my businesses successful. If they don't, I don't make money, right? I can't just turn around and say, "Hey, give me some more money because my business is failing." But that's what our government does. Our government fails us in so many ways, but they keep asking us or demanding more money from us to pay for their failures. They're failing the citizens of Michigan. We're losing businesses, which means we're losing jobs, which means we're losing people, which means we're losing revenue. We can't afford to keep doing that. Our state is bankrupt. Our state is bankrupt. We owe way too much money in unfunded liabilities, which is like pensions and benefits and stuff like that for these people that have been retired from the state employment and that kind of thing. We don't have the money for that. So guess what? Taxes are going to keep going up so we can keep shoveling that money out. We get almost half of Michigan's money comes from the federal government, and the federal government, we said, is starting to turn the spigots off. The federal government is looking and saying the federal government is trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, and Michigan is one of the states that gets a lot of money from the federal government. So when the federal government is trying to cut wasteful spending, they're going to look at Michigan and say, Michigan's wasting a lot of the federal dollars. We're going to start turning those spigots off. Sorry, Michigan, fend for yourself. Okay. We can't do that because almost half of our money comes from the federal government. That's a scary thought. Very
Well,
scary thought.
well, I just saw that the governor of New York State, Hochul, last night, she's trying to get
Yes.
people, higher income people, to move back, so we can tax you more. I mean, who the
Are
hell in
these
the right
people
mind would do that?
these people are stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
Are
it's
you kidding me? You chased me out of your state. Now you're going to beg me to come back to your state and Mandami there, what he's doing. He's already a failure because he goes, "Oh, well, we're losing money or we don't have enough money for all of these social programs that we want to put out. So we're going to raise property taxes." Guess what? You raise property taxes to pay for programs that are not self-sustaining and they generate no revenue. Well, pretty soon you tax the people to death. They're all going to pick up and leave. Now you have no one. You have no one supporting the state.
so
No
much
money coming in to support the state.
so much for the warmth of collectivism. And you remember you said that, well, embrace the embrace of collective warmth of collectivism or something like that. No, I mean, I think it's like, to me, it just like these people just can't realize it's right there. Hochul's comment right there. That's what Margaret, what was there? Maggie Thatcher said about socialists running out of other people's money. I mean, she
Right.
admitted to that. We're running out of your other people's money. We
Well,
want you to come back so we can tax you more.
yeah. And so I want to let people know because we need to be informed voters. And there's places that you can go to look up your candidates or the people that are running, look up their voting records, look up their scorecards, look up their donations. Don't just look at how much how much money they have in their campaign funds. Look at where that money's come from. Who has it come from? Has it come from little individual grassroots type people? Has it come from PACs? Has it come from the utility companies like DTE and Consumers Energy? That's a big one for me. That's a big no. Because if DTE and Consumers Energy are paying these people $750,000 to $100,000 or to $1 million, that tells me they're not going to help us with our rates. Our utility rates are never going to go down if our utility companies are paying so many of these candidates and so many of these politicians that kind of money. That means our rates go up, right? Our rates aren't going to go down because of that. So there's a couple of candidates that are talking about income tax elimination. I'm talking about property tax, right? So income tax is what you have withheld from your paycheck. You go to work, you work, you say I should be earning $1,500 a week, but I only got $1,200 a week. Why? Because I paid $300 in state income tax. So we have some governor candidates that say, I'm going to eliminate state income tax and I'm going to promise every family in Michigan $4,747 back in income tax once we eliminate the income tax. 4747, of course, President Trump's number is 47, so they're linking themselves to President Trump. But you can't make that statement. That is a lie. Because if you don't pay income tax in, like most of our senior citizens, you're not eligible to get income tax back. So when he says I'm going to give every family $4,747 back when we eliminate income tax, no, you are not. That is a bald-faced lie. You cannot promise that to people. If you don't pay it in, you don't get it back. I did tax returns between 10 and 12 years of tax returns. I know these things. He's a businessman. He should know these things. So whether he's saying it just to be clever or whether he's saying it to get people's votes, it's not the truth. But people are going to listen to him and they're going to vote for him based on the fact that they think they're going to get a check for $4,747 back in the mail. That's income tax. What am I promoting? Total elimination of property tax. Property tax is the only tax that steals your home. Every person in the state of Michigan pays property tax, whether you own property or not. If you are a renter, you're paying your landlord's property tax. It's figured into your rent. Go ahead.
No, that's true. Another thing is too, I mean, if you look into our person is aging and they have their retirement set up, they got everything covered for, but now they got their house and property. See, maybe they need to do it. Somebody votes in a millage. Now that person who was thought they're pretty much well established now faces they might have to lose their house. They paid into 40, 45, 50 years, their entire life. And matter of fact, and it's taken from them by the county or whatever and handed over to somebody else or whatever. I mean, that's got to be the most egregious, taking of property that I've seen.
Yes.
That's your home.
And it's happening every day. It's
Right.
happening every day across the state. It's homes, farms, businesses, vacant lots, whatever it might be. It's property taxes, that properties that are being taken away because people can no longer afford the property tax on a house that they may have paid off. Maybe they're still paying on it. And the property taxes are added into their escrow, which makes their mortgage payment unaffordable. But regardless, a lot of times there's many, many services on your property tax bill that you don't even use. I can just mention a few on mine. I don't go to my library. I don't go to my zoo. I don't go to my museum. And yet I have to pay for all three of those. And if I can't afford one of them, I will lose my house. Now what we start seeing is we see these townships, they're starting to add your trash bill to your property tax bill. So what if you can't afford the trash, the $170 or whatever it might be on your property tax bill? If you can't afford that, you're going to lose your house to trash.
Yeah, another thing, or street lights or whatever.
Street lights,
yeah,
gypsy moth, spraying. And I just think You know what? If you live in a township or if you live in an area where you need gypsy moth sprayed, I would think that that would come out of the general fund of the township or something that you live in. Or there's sometimes it's if it's around like a little lake, it's like algae spraying or something. The people around the lake should pay for that. It shouldn't be paid for somebody that lives 10 miles away from the lake,
Right, they don't enjoy any
right?
benefit of it, right, they don't enjoy the benefit of it. I mean, not that's
Some people pay it. Sometimes they say, "Hey, it's only going to be on these addresses or whatever," and they might encapsulate it a little bit, but there's just too many things that we have to pay for at the risk of losing our property, services we normally wouldn't. Like, I'm not gonna go out. I mean, even if I wanted to go to the zoo, I would go to the zoo once every 5 years, not every year that I have to pay for it on my property tax bill. And when I went once every 5 years, it's just like anything else, save up for it. If you're gonna go on a trip, if you're gonna do a day trip, if you're gonna take a vacation, you save up for it. Save up for it and pay it. Why is it on my property tax bill? Because that's the easy way for the government to do it. It's the easy way for the zoo people to do it. It's the easy way for the county government to do it.
another thing is too, is if you're not on board for it too, they use like, they just try to use like peer pressure, like, "Oh, I can't believe you want it. You don't want a zoo, you don't want culture, you don't want art and museums and stuff like that." And it's like, well,
Of course I do, but not at the expense of someone losing their home.
that's our point. It's just like, basically, we've now made it so that, basically, you're forced by just about all it is a chance to get, peer pressure. That's all it is. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not an intellectual debate they can make on it. They just use emotional appeals. That's what it is largely emotional appeals.
Yeah. We have and I'm kind of talking about the Republican end, just because and you can equate this if you have Democrats or Tea Party people, libertarians. What I'm saying is you have to really research your candidates. Some of the other candidates that I'm running against, you know, they say they're against wind and solar and data, but yet if you go back and look to see who has donated to their campaigns, even maybe not even this year while they're running for governor, but in previous years, go back and look who donated to their campaigns, DTE, Consumers Energy. How did they vote? They voted to make it very easy for solar, wind, and data to be here. And then they voted to give them subsidies. And then they also voted to give them tax abatements. So, and then they want to stand there and tell you, oh, I don't like solar and wind. Why do they say that? Because they hire consultants to read the people, right? So they look at it and they go, do we not see people all across the state of Michigan standing up? They fought Goshen, they're fighting solar, they're fighting data centers, they're fighting battery storage plants. That's we, the people that are doing that. And so these people that are running for governor and some of these other representative positions, they're looking at it and go, oh boy, we better stand up and say we're against these things because that's what the people want. All of the governor candidates are now talking about property tax reform or property tax elimination, but it wasn't on their agenda. It's not their passion. They don't have it in their plan to do it. They're talking about it because we've been talking about it for 6 years, and we've got the people primed and ready to vote for anyone that's going to promise them property tax reform or elimination. But are they going to do it once you vote for them? And I say no. That is why I continued my fight, not only to circulate petitions to educate the people, to go around the state doing presentations to say we can eliminate property tax and we must eliminate property tax if we want to be able to afford to live here, if we want our senior citizens and our kids, if we want middle income people to live here, if we want businesses to come here and bring jobs here and people be able to afford to live here, we must eliminate total elimination of property tax. Not this tiny little tidbit of reform. That's not going to do us any good. No good at all. So, but you have to, just because they're talking about it doesn't mean they're going to do it. You got to look and say, who's going to actually do something about it? And
So
who knows what to do and who knows how to do it. And
I know
that'd
the
be me.
the first person I think I know that can hear people say the objection, well, if you don't have property tax, how are you going to pay for police and fire protection, emergency services, stuff like that? And we covered, I think, the first time we did it, but maybe we want to cover that now. I think there should just be a flat rate for those things. And if you don't pay it, you're still not going to danger of losing your house. Maybe they'll put, maybe they won't go to your house to pick up your trash or something like that. But it's not so now. It's not like so precarious a situation. I mean,
Well,
what
and
would
I
your
and so I think we need to be very careful with it because, of course, you know what? I don't want to live next to somebody that doesn't want to pay their trash bill, right? Because all of a sudden their house, it stinks. They've got flies, they've got rodents, they've got vermin, right? Because you can't not have trash. But can they do the trash, um have them do the trash privately or something like that? Cities and townships already have ordinances for trash. Most of them do. If a neighbor doesn't pick up their trash, goodness sakes, if they don't mow their lawn, you call and the township can come and enforce a law on them. Why do I need to pay my property tax? Why do I need to pay my trash on my property tax bill? You already have enforceable laws on the books. So I want to talk about police and fire because that's the biggest thing. So our petition, our AxMiTax petition, it provided for funding for police and fire because the state has tons of money. The state has a lot of money with in a lot of different buckets. We were just forcing the state to say, constitutionally, you have to take that money, transfer it down to the townships. It's already happening. It's not something new. They're already doing it. We just need to say, we just said you need to do more. Because if there's no property tax, all of the revenue streams will increase because there's no property tax. We'll have an economic boon or economic prosperity. When that happens, why should we not take a bigger chunk of that bucket and pass it down to our townships and our counties? So, constitutional revenue sharing, that's the number one thing. But, John, I'm sure you've seen, if you watch like Matt Hall, he's our Republican House Speaker. He recently, I think in this past week, he just said, Matt Hall just found another $5 billion, $5 billion with dollars worth of waste, fraud, and abuse in Lansing. And then he said, I found another $10 billion of money sitting in slush funds that haven't been used. That 5 billion and that 10 billion together equals 15 billion. That's property tax. If you found that money and it's wasted and it's fraud and it's abuse and it's sitting in slush funds, why do we need property tax? We don't. You've just proven our point. You have just proven our point. We are sending so much money to Lansing, they don't even know what to do with it except waste it. But we're losing our homes trying to send that money to Lansing. There's just as much fraud. The townships don't have as much money as the state, but when you look at the amount of fraud, percentage wise, there's just as much fraud at the township level. There's just as much fraud at the county level, which is just another reason why I say we can eliminate property taxes just based on fraud. Now let's go and be fiscally responsible with the dollars and find out how much else can be cut, because we don't need pickleball courts. We don't need splash pads. Those are not life-saving essential services. What we need is police and fire. I will trade a pickleball court for a couple more police officers. I will trade a splash pad for a couple of more firefighters. Let's put the money where it's supposed to be. Essential services for the protection of the lives, the liberty, and the property of the people. That's where it needs to be.
See, that's a
Not,
libertarian. The libertarian concept is basically, governments of any type actually just have very limited roles, and amongst them are like, protection of the country on a national level, and then police and fire protection on a local level, and stuff like that to better ensure the prosperity as well as the just every actual day to day living. That's what the government's responsible for, not for quality of life issues. We want you to have a pickleball court by your house,
yeah,
or yeah, I mean it's just
exactly. That's exactly it. Essential services. That's what they owe us. That's what I want from them. And you know what? I'll pick out where I want to go on vacation. I'll decide what if I want to go to a park or a pickleball court or if I just want to ride my bike down the road. Those are all choices I can make. I don't need the government to tell me that, and I certainly don't want the government at the risk of me losing my house to spend money on something I'm not going to use. Now, so let's talk about police and fire again, because I think there's multiple ways of doing that. One of the things that we need to do is require, if you have a bank loan on if you have a mortgage on your house, that bank requires you to have insurance because they want to make sure that the asset you borrowed money from them on is covered with insurance, right? So
right.
if your house burns down, the bank gets their money back through the insurance company. So, this is what we can do. I own a commercial building where I have my little restaurant and my antique store. Here's my commercial building. I want police protection. I want fire protection. Send me those bills. And then the insurance companies can say, we're not going to give you insurance on your building, Karla, unless we know that you can show us proof that you have paid for police and fire protection. So if my township would say, we've got 10 businesses in my township and they all owe $2,000 a year for police. Here's my $2,000. If they say you all owe $2,000 for fire, here's my $2,000. Right? I want that. Now I can get insurance on my building. Same thing with houses. If the insurance company would say, we need to see that you paid your bill for house, for fire and police, we can do it that way. That's just one of many ways. We can do it through the constitutional revenue sharing of the sales tax, the income tax, the alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco tax. That's another way to pay for those essential services. There's multitudes of ways to do it. Nobody wants to put on their thinking cap. Nobody wants to help us. That's what it tells me. They really just do not want to help us.
Because it's like what it's been is it's been in place. They've assumed that's always going to be there, and it's just very comfortable doing it. And it's really, let's face it, it's a idyllic life for a politician. They know that padding's there for them. They know that they can draw from that, and people are dependent on, and people don't examine any other ways of doing this. That's what it is. They know they got people. They go about their day to day living, and nobody's examining
You know what?
alternatives.
Exactly. And you know what? How many current politicians, when they know how bad the economy is here in Michigan, when they know how unaffordable living in Michigan has become, how many representatives or how many legislators current in Michigan have you heard suggest going to part-time legislation? Wouldn't
Uh,
that save the taxpayers a ton of money? Let's just go to part-time legislation. Like so many, more than 40 other states have part-time legislation. In fact, there's one state, I can't remember if it's New Hampshire or New Jersey, they only pay their people like $100
I'm going
to
to say,
come into service because they truly are a public servant.
when I was a kid, the city we had a city council and they appointed the mayor. It wasn't a popular elected mayor, but back then the city council members only got $6 a meeting, and I think the mayor made more. And I was a little kid, so I can't remember the exact name, but
Yeah.
we had better quality people in
Yes.
those offices then
Because
than we got
because
now.
right, because you have business people that have business brains, right? They have business smarts, they're business people, and they want to better their community. So they're willing to give up a couple of hours of their time. They're going to get a little bit of per diem back to cover their gas or whatever, and then, and, but they have the knowledge. They have the knowledge because they're business people. Either they work for someone else in a certain arena, or they maybe be a small business owner. They might be a manufacturing plant. They might be an accountant. There's something where they have the knowledge to be good stewards of other people's money and to make good decisions for the community. That's
Yeah,
what we need again. Right now, we're getting candidates right out of college. How do they represent me?
right.
When you're 20 some years old, how do you represent me? I've been a small time business owner all of my life. I build, I start a business, I run a business, I do this, I do that. I pay people, I volunteer. I was on my church finance committee. I was a volunteer for the sheriff's department. There's all of these things that I've done in my 40 years since high school. Where are these kids? How does a kid that's just coming out of college, how do they have the knowledge and life experience to represent me
They
and to
don't.
make good decisions for other people like myself that have kids in these horrible public schools, or that are paying property taxes or own a business? How do they make decisions for those people?
I don't think they can. I mean, I don't think that, and I've seen that. I mean, I've seen people like we had a local activist here years ago who got elected to school board in the small town of Davison, and I think people are knowledge. I think you probably know who I'm referring to. I mean, he was right out of high school himself, or not much many years after that. And he got elected as in the school board. Okay, it's basically like, okay, I just have from that perspective, a student basically have an input on a school. I mean, they don't have to look at the realities of budget and hiring and firing practices and criteria for students or administrators. They're just kids. Okay, I mean, they don't understand that. And right now, we have people who are activists in our community who are involved in our city government, and I don't think we've been served well with this. I really don't. I mean, there's a couple of them are advocates for the people to some degree, but they weren't all that stellar of an individual because like you were, they had nothing real life experience that was relevant towards this is a business. A city, a municipality is a business, and that's missed on them. They don't have that capability.
We have people running, we have other, you know what? I don't have any political experience, but I don't think political experience is necessary to run a state like you do a business. But we have governor candidates that have no business experience.
Well, like George
I,
McGovern, he was a radical leftist back when I was a kid. I didn't like him when he was a kid, but after he got out of government, he got involved in business. And then he looked back and seen some of the legislation he passed when he was involved in government was draconian to businesses. And he admitted he kind of felt ashamed about that. He felt like, well, maybe I should have done that. Hindsight's 2020, but
right.
how many people did
Well,
you make suffer under that?
you know what? And we have some of our representatives right now, and they're like, okay, we're going to give a little bit of a property tax cut to homeowners. Okay, well, what is a farmer? A farmer that lives in his farmhouse on his farm, but his farm is a business. So does the farmer get that homeowner's property tax credit? Yes or no?
Probably not.
And if we're going to give a property tax credit to homeowners only, how are we going to make rent affordable? I guess we don't care that rent's not affordable. So does that mean we're going to continue to be taxed to pay for affordable multifamily units? Because we're going to give homeowners a little tiny bit, like a 10% tax cut, which is absolutely nothing. And then, but you're not going to do anything for the renters? How does that even make sense? That doesn't make sense.
It's got to be. And there's another thing is too. Everybody should enjoy some benefit from it. It shouldn't be just one group. That's what I mean, and that's what they say.
Exactly.
That's what it is of trickle down. That's been the criticism of trickle down.
And
Well,
you know what, John, to be honest, not just because I own a small business, but there's over 900,000 small businesses in Michigan. Small businesses are the backbone of your community. If we don't get relief, we're all going to close down and go away. where will anyone work? Where will you work and have a job to make money, to pay your bills and pay your mortgage when, I mean, you've seen how many businesses have closed up here in
Right.
Michigan. It's horrifying, actually, the number of businesses that are going out of business. Look at the 24% excise tax they just put on marijuana. The pot shops and the hemp industry, the people that grow hemp, they grow hemp for fabric, plastics, insulation. They use hemp in a lot of things, but that industry is being wiped out by that 24% excise tax.
You see, and the politicians refuse to see that every time they increase, there's no the
Taxes
tax.
they lose. They think they're gonna make, oh, we're gonna make this much more money. In fact, they said we're gonna make $424 million on that 24% excise tax on marijuana. Okay, but when you shut half of the marijuana pot shops and the hemp industry down, you have half the amount that you're making that 24% from. So now you're really only going to make 212 million, not 424 million, but you've budgeted the 424
Right.
million. Where are you going to get the difference?
Exactly. They say we're going to make this much, so now we got a program. We're going to utilize most of that. Well, now it's dropped. Your income's dropped. Where are you
And
going to come
so
up with
how are
the
you going
money
to
for
fund the program?
the
Exactly. How
program?
are you going to fund the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's like these
But
people are
more
just.
taxes. So
That's
that's
what
what
these.
Matt Hall is doing. He's giving a tiny little bit of reform. I'm going to give you some property tax relief, but I'm adding a luxury tax. He's adding a luxury tax to boating and to golf and to salons or whatever. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. He wants to add a luxury tax, limousine services. So like these kids that rent a limousine for prom, they're going to
Mhm.
have to pay that luxury tax. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Besides, I don't know why it's the government's right to decide what's considered luxury for us. I mean,
I
it
know.
should be up for us. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember when I was in basic economics class too. I mean, it seems like these guys can't learn a lesson. They were like, say, hey, let's put put a high price tax on luxury goods like yachts. Yeah, let's do that. And the people said, well, guess what? They just moved offshore where they bought the yachts. And now the people who are employed in building the yachts and rewiring them and stuff like that and keeping them in good condition were out of jobs. I mean,
Yep.
it's like, now you got people who are dependent on the dole because you eliminated their job.
Yeah.
And
People
that's
will just go people will just go elsewhere. You want to put an excise tax on marijuana here in Michigan? People will go to Indiana or Ohio, Illinois, wherever, they'll just like they did with cigarettes. You cross the border, you go to Indiana, you buy your cigarettes there, you load up, you come back home, whatever. I mean, they're just going to send people elsewhere to buy that stuff. So, how does that benefit us?
it
How
doesn't.
how does the decisions that these people are making in Lansing, and I don't care what side of the aisle they're on, they're killing us.
Well, see, they're politicians are politicians. Their whole role, their whole existence is predicated upon an income coming from the people so they can enjoy a great lifestyle. And we are the fatted cat, the fatted cows. That's all we are. We serve a purpose, making them have a great life. And they don't contribute significantly positively in our lives. They don't.
I was talking to someone the other day and I said, "You know what? This is what I feel. This is so sad, but this is how I feel. I have a vote, right? I legally am able to vote. I have a vote, but I vote for a representative. I vote for a state representative. I vote for a house representative. I vote for a senator, right? I vote for a house representative. I vote for a senator. I'm basically giving them my vote.
Right.
They take it to Lansing and they parlay it to the lobbyist who will give them the biggest benefit, and I get the bill.
Right.
Because my representative or my senator, they're going to get some perks, they're going to get some money, they're going to get a trip or some meals, they're going to get something from those lobbyists to convince them to vote a certain way. So they're taking my vote, parlaying it into benefits for the representative, and I foot the bill.
That's exactly
And
what they.
so I just said, you know what? This time around, I'm going to hold my vote a little bit tighter to my chest. And when these people, they come and knock on my door, they say, will you support me? Will you donate money? Will you vote for me? Will you door knock for me? My litmus test is going to be, did you help us eliminate property taxes in the state of Michigan? I don't care about your promises going forward. I don't care what you're going to do next year. I want to know what you did in the last 6 years that we've been screaming at you that we need property tax relief. And if you did absolutely freaking nothing, you're not getting my vote, my money, or my support. Sorry. Maybe I will sell it. Maybe I will sell my vote to the highest offer. Right? Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I get a personal? Because they're not looking out for us. They're not doing what's in our best interest. They're doing what's in their best interest.
Right. And it's like another thing is too, it's like if now some people say you're going to like that's like a corruption of the right to vote. Look at all the people who died for you to have a right to vote. And it's like, yeah, but they didn't mean it to be political capital for the politicians.
And
It's supposed to be
don't
for
tell
you.
me how to vote. Do not tell me. I will vote my conscience. I don't care if you have a R or a D in my case, I'm a non-party affiliate. I'm going to have an I behind my name. I don't care. You vote for people on merit, not money, and not because they're propped up by people that want to tell you who to vote. Vote for this person. We know maybe he murdered somebody, but he's got an R behind his name, so go ahead and vote for him anyway.
It's like, yeah, the sins of our own party we can overlook. I mean, no, it's if we didn't. I think another thing is being an independent or being on, non-affiliated. Actually, 45% of the voting public actually doesn't identify with any party.
That's kind of the what they're putting out. And you know what? With property tax elimination, John, I think we had Tea Party people and libertarians, and we had Democrats, and we had a lot of disenfranchised Republicans, and we had a lot of core Republicans. Everybody got behind that and supported that. And what I'm telling people right now, I started to run for governor. I ran for governor because I want property tax elimination to happen. I think it's the only thing that can save our people and save our state. And when we cut spending, we can cut taxes. And that's what makes Michigan affordable and attractive to businesses to come here, that we won't have to pay them or bribe them to come here. They will come here because there's no property tax, not only on the property they need to buy to build their manufacturing company or whatever it is that they're going to build, but then they will have good people here because people won't have to pay property taxes on a house that they want to buy near that factory or manufacturing plant. And that company, they're not going to have to pay the electrical and the DT gas and electric service should go down because DTE and Consumers Energy pay a lot in property taxes. So if they don't have to pay property taxes anymore, services should be cheaper, and any raw material they need that can be sourced from Michigan to make the product that they're going to build and sell to us, it should all be cheaper because there's no property taxes in the state of Michigan. It affects all of us. It's a domino effect that will make life more affordable in Michigan by eliminating property taxes.
Well, I think we definitely covered that great. And anyway, I'd like to, definitely encourage you people to contact you too. We will give you an opportunity to say we got on the scrolling banner there your website along with your name. Is there any other way they maybe reach you? Are you going to be at some place maybe in the next few weeks that you want to maybe have them show up and support and maybe sign a petition and stuff like that? Or
you know what, I had to collect petitions, a nominating petition as a Republican, and now I'm switching over to a qualifying petition for an independent. So I'm going to have to start my circulation period all over, but I have now until the end of June. So I'll be starting now until the end of June to collect those signatures to get me on the ballot in November. I'll go right to the November election once I collect all my signatures and turn them in. I am, you know what? The best thing to do is to go to that website and see where I'm going to be. I try to post as many events on there as I can that are open to the public. Of course, some of the things we do are party affiliated. Um, I've still been asked to speak at some Lincoln Day dinners, that kind of thing, but those are closed events. We are going to be starting to get out now that the weather's a little bit nicer. We're going to be out popping around to different like little coffee shops and restaurants all across the state. And I'm sure we'll be putting that on social media. I do have a couple of events coming up, but I just don't have all of the final details on them in order to make a flyer to get them on my website. So the changeover from Republican to qualifying, I'm just kind of finishing that up right now. So we'll be changing over some things on the website. The website is open. It is current. I think you can sign up on there to get a petition. You can never sign these governor petitions online. You can't sign them online, but you can sign up to get them online. There's a form online on the website. Sign up, get a petition mailed to your house, sign it, fill it up, send it back to us. That's perfect.
And I'd definitely like to see people engage in that. So, and it was always like, as always, it's always great to talk to you. And definitely contact us if you want to come back again and bring something to the people's attention. We definitely like to cover that. Okay.
There's so much going on, John. There's so much that goes on. A lot of it's behind the scenes. People don't see it. They don't understand why people are making the decision. Like a lot of people didn't understand what I was doing until I kind of put it out there a little bit more that we were just being, not taken seriously by our own party. Therefore, but like I said, my message, property tax elimination, is so important. The other governor candidate have all picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I'm the one that knows all about it because I've done the research on it and I know how to do it. So by them not allowing me to take the debate stage or the forum, that means people are not being given proper information about property tax elimination and the fact that it can absolutely be done. And anyone that tells you that can't, need to have their head examined, truly. And we now have about 16 states across the United States working on this very thing, property tax reform and elimination. And I have talked to 13 of those 16 states. We've started a movement here, and we want legislation. If they're not getting something, then frickin' get out of our way and let us do it.
Amen. So anyway, great to talk to you again. And like I said, people leave comments. Here on All Points TV and Flint Talk, and also contact you through. You have a Facebook page too, right? That you can reach you at too, or
I do. Facebook page is basically the same thing. If they look for like Karla for Michigan Facebook page, I'll pop up on there. And you know what? I always hate to do this, but I always has to ask if you can. $5, $10. I don't need a lot of money to run my campaign, especially not at this point. But $5, $10 helps pay for rat cards, postage, flyers, that kind of thing. And it's just I'm running on fiscal responsibility, and like I like to say to people, right? I can squeeze $1.10 out of $1. That's why you want me in the governor's seat,
that's
because I will shrink the spending for sure and give the taxpayers back some of their money. Definitely.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. So
All
anyway,
right.
again, thank you for joining us, and I'm very much for your time. Okay.
Thank you, John. I appreciate